Here we are at WETF. Before we go any further today, I know what you're probably thinking. Who the hell is this guy? And you got the right to ask that because, even though I've been around, you might not know me. This might be the first time you've seen something from me, so you may be a little bit confused. And that's okay, because I'm going to explain to you a little bit about who I am and about the way that I go about doing things. So, first of all, my name is CB. You can call me CB. My mama calls me CB, and that's about what needs to be said. One of the things that I want to get into this week, of course, Asian Americans being targeted with violence. As you all know, there was a shooting last Tuesday where there were 8 victims, 6 of which were of Asian descent. Now, there's a lot of controversy as to whether this particular shooter had that in mind when he was committing these crimes. However, in the climate that we're in, a lot of people that are racist are not readily admitting to it. And it's always a lot of questions when there's a majority of the people that are hurt in an incident like this are the same race. If there were 6 black people that were being killed, that question would still come up if the assailant was of a different race. So these are not new thoughts, but I think that there has been an outcry lately because of the incidents that have been going on for the past year. Just to talk a little bit about the incident, I don't want to get too deep into it, but in the northern suburbs of Atlanta, more or less, there was one killing in a town called Ackworth, Georgia. It happened about 5 p.m. on Tuesday, and when the authorities reached the scene, they found 2 people already dead, and there were 3 more injured. They transferred the 3 that were injured to the local hospital, where 2 more of them ended up being deceased. So that was a total of 4. And then later on, about an hour later, there was two different locations that were across the street from each other in northeast Atlanta, where 4 more victims met their death. So it was all done by one person who was later then caught on his way to Florida, where it is thought that he would commit more crimes, more violent crimes in this nature. And it's just a very intriguing case because of, the idea that the majority of the victims were Asian. And then there's also the idea that he was doing this as some type of way of dealing with his own issues with sexual addiction. So this case is far from over. You have heard from both the president and vice president this week, and a lot of other people concerning this situation. It's not just about this case again. It's more so about the way that Asians have been treated in general over the past year as it relates to the pandemic and things of that nature. And I just think that we as people need to really watch how we interact with one another when it comes to things of that nature. Like, as a black man in America, I know that it is not just some kind of fleeting thought that there's this discrimination going on, and we need to address all forms of discrimination, no matter who they are and no matter how they're affected, because when it comes to the things that affect us, we want to make sure that those things are addressed fully. So anytime that there's someone or a group of people that is feeling this way about the way they're treated in this country, then I think it's everyone's job to address that and to really make it easier or make things better for all people. So that's just the way that I feel about it. I would love to hear from you guys, so please leave a comment and we'll get back to you just a moment. My main goal is to inform and entertain at the same time, so I always focus on topics that are important to me. Now, The reason I know that these topics are important to you is because they're important to me. And if you ever have any ideas about things that I should talk about, please reach out to me. I'm not hard to find. You can get me on Twitter, or you can get me on Instagram at The Rude Educator. And, we'll talk about Facebook and some of these other places later on down the line. But right now, Instagram and Twitter is just fine. So this show is just whatever comes to mind at the time. It's not always going to make a whole lot of sense. The shows don't have themes. It's just me giving how I feel about certain things. That's it. So make sure you subscribe and follow The Rude Educator on Twitter and Instagram. And we'll be back. So as you see, I got on my Bears jersey. So we definitely going to talk about football today. The 2020-2021 season ended in a spectacular fashion. You had Tom Brady, 43-year-old legend, living legend, playing against new golden boy of the league, Patrick Mahomes. Hey, what can I say? TB did his thing. And I mean, it makes it even more amazing when you look at the fact that he did it with a brand new team. He was not dealing with his old coach, Bill Belichick in New England. He decided that he was going to take his talents to Tampa Bay. He did have one, notable receiver following him there, and Ron Gronkowski. But for the most part, Tom Brady did his thing with the people that he had to do it with, and he did an amazing job, and he won. So hats off to him. And if you are a Tom Brady hater, then get help, because the man is obviously one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. And it's just facts. I might not readily admit that at some points in my life, but at this point, you got to give it to him. And there's no doubt about him being the greatest. Now, if you want to talk about football, we got to talk about this free agency situation that's going on right now, because last week there was 2 days of legal tampering that was allowed by the league, and so you got a lot of free agency rumors going on, and I'm going to talk about some of them. Now, in free agency, you always have those that, even though they're a free agent and they may shop around, they end up signing back with the same team they've been playing with, because them and the team have reached a certain level of success together. I don't have any problem with that. But I feel like the real story in free agency are those players that go from one team to another team, maybe changing the balance of those teams, and therefore changing the chances of them reaching championship status that year. So to me, it's always interesting when those moves are made. And with the help of some of my little minions, we compiled a list of those players that were free agents this off season and are looking to go to greener pastures. Some of these moves I think are good. Some of them may be a little questionable, maybe players a little questionable, but we'll let you decide, and we're just gonna present the facts. And like I said, you be the judge. If you think these are good moves or not, please leave comments and let me know what you think. So, topping off all this is a young man by the name of Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney is also offensive guard that played with the New England Patriots last year. He'll be going to the Kansas City Chiefs. He signed a 5-year, $80 million deal. And, he's one of those guys that you can depend on. He started all 80 games of his career, and he's considered to be one of the top 5 offensive guards in the league. So he's one of those guys that, again, you can depend on. He hasn't been played with energy like some other guys. So when you're looking for a person to add to your team, that's always a valuable aspect. Next up, we got Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is a tight end that was with the LA Chargers last year. He'll be going to the New England Patriots. His deal is estimated to be 3 years, $37.5 million. Last year, he did 60 receptions for 614 yards, which is pretty good. And he'll be joining Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, and Kendrick Bourne as new receivers in New England. Because I don't know if you guys remember, there was a little guy by the name of Cam Newton who got picked up by New England last year. He just re-signed. And so now with them doubling down on Cam Newton, the Patriots have to give him somebody to target. And I think that between Hunter Henry and these other guys that they're bringing in, he's going to have plenty of targets and less excuses. So you got to definitely keep an eye on what's going on in New England. Next year, it is bound to be spectacular. This brings us next to Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith played with the Tennessee Titans last year. And again, like I said, he'll be one of those receivers going to the Patriots this year. His deal is estimated to be 4 years, $50 million. And last year with the Titans, he had 41 receptions for 448 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he's definitely another big target that Cam Newton's going to have this year. He said he's excited to play alongside Hunter Henry. So it all depends. They may, get that two tight end type of thing going on where they're both, liable to get the ball or, a number of other things. You never know what Bill Belichick's going to do. So with a new quarterback, a newly signed quarterback, and some newly signed receivers, that offense is going to be looking pretty good. Number 4 on our list is Corey Linsley. Now, Corey Linsley's a center, and he's going to go from the backers to the Chargers. So, this is a guy that 734 snaps, and he's only got 1 sack that's credited to him. So, he's doing a great job of protecting Aaron Rodgers last year, and he's going to do the same when he goes out to LA next year. He's on our pro team last year as well, and he's played at least 13 games in all 6 of the 7 seasons he was with the Packers, so he's a pretty dependable guy too, which is definitely what you want in your center, because the center and the quarterback, they have a pretty special relationship, to say the least. And again, it's more so about, who you're used to playing with. You might have somebody that's a little better, but if you're used to getting the ball from this guy and you're used to his rhythm and all of that, the guy that you want is your guy. You don't ever want to, have a mix-up between the guy that you're used to and somebody else, because the time is going to be off. So as a center position, it's very, very important that you have somebody that you can trust. So make sure you keep an eye on LA, the center position, because we're going to be seeing a lot from that young man. Next up on our list is John Johnson. John Johnson is a safety that's signing a 3-year, $33.75 million deal with the Browns. He was playing with the LA Rams last year. Got over 100 tackles for almost 79 with solo. And as a defensive player, he's played all over. He's played safety. He's played corner. He's played in the middle. He's played on the line. And that's not something that you see a lot of these days. So to see somebody that wants to be all over the field like that is really a good thing. And he's been doing it since college. He went to Boston College. And that's something that he started doing then. So it's nothing new to him to be all over the place. And he's probably going to take some of that to the Browns when he goes. And then he'll have somebody, Myles Garrett have somebody that's there with him that they can really make an impact. Next up, we got Carl Lawson, who the defensive end or edge, he's known. Okay, he played in Cincinnati last year, and he's a known guy. So, he's got 20 career sacks in 4 years, and he was in on 723 defensive possessions. He's been a problem, for a while now. And he knows what he wants. So He's leaving Cincinnati to go to the Jets. Some people may question that move, but he's a guy that is very determined. So he's the kind of guy that goes into an organization that's struggling like the Jets and help turn them around. So make sure you keep an eye on Lawson, because he's going to be in New York next year. He's going to be out there at the Jets organization in New Jersey. So, keep an eye out. That's all I'm saying. Keep an eye out. Next up on our list is a young man by the name of Curtis Samuel. Now, Curtis Samuel was a wide receiver who played with the Panthers last year, and he'll be going to the Washington football team. Now, the Washington football team still doesn't have a name. And I'm thinking to myself, like, just pick a name. You got, it doesn't have to be racist like it was before. You guys changed the Bullets to the Wizards. You got a team called the Nationals. I mean, just pick something. It's not that hard. You can't pick the Patriots, but pick something. Anyway, you got this guy. He's another Ohio State guy. And Curtis has pushed his receptions and receiving yards up. Okay, so he did that last year, and on a team that was dealing with a new coach, new system, new quarterback, all that, and his numbers still went up. So we got a guy like that. The distraction of going to a new team is probably not going to hinder him much. So I would expect his numbers to go up again this year, even though he's playing in Washington instead of Carolina. And, he's got 2,000 yards in 4 years as a receiver. So you really got to take a guy like that seriously. And I think that he has not yet lived up to his full potential. So again, you got to keep watching him now that he's down in Washington. Okay, so next person on our list is William Jackson. William Jackson is a cornerback. He played with the Bengals last year. This year he'll be going to the Washington football team. He's looking at a 3-year, $42 million deal. He's a standout. He was a standout last year. He got 11 deflections. The pass completion in his zone when he's the nearest defender is 57.9%. That's pretty good, and that number goes down to 56.1% when he's on the outside. So he's definitely that guy that you want to put on those receivers that are running the street plays, things of that nature. He can lock them down, and you want a guy like that on your squad. Especially if you've been struggling with pass coverage in the years previous, like Washington has. So Washington could be a very good change for this young man. If you're a Cincinnati fan, if you've been watching Cincinnati Bengals, he had a lot of impact last year, and I expect him to do the same thing this year in Washington. He's number 9 on our list, but he's got the biggest contract on our list. So special shout out to Bud Dupree. Bud Dupree is an edge. He's looking at a 5-year, $82.5 million deal with the Tennessee Titans. He was with Pittsburgh last year, and there's some controversy about him because, for one, he's injured. He tore his ACL last year, and so it's a little bit questionable how he's going to come back as usual. But there's also the question of who he's playing next to. He was playing next to T.J. Watt in Pittsburgh. So T.J. Watt's not going to be there next year to push, plays his way. So the question is, with the injury, without his partner in crime, will he be able to produce the same way that he was able to produce in Pittsburgh and get those 19 sacks like he had in Pittsburgh? We don't know. We got to watch. That's what we do. We watch football so we can see what happens. So this is just something to have you open your eyes and make sure you're watching next year. Shout out to my cousin Freddie, by the way, big Tennessee Titans fan. I hope that Bud Dupree does a good job for you guys down there. Anyway, last person on our list is a young man by the name of Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson is looking at a 4-year, $60 million deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. Coming from the New Orleans Saints. The interesting story that I heard about Trey was that when he was in high school, he was cut from his football team his senior year. And the coach told him the only way he could interact with the team is if he became a team manager. So he's going from being a man to handing out water bottles and towels. I mean, it's a humbling experience. But he only did it for spring training. So by the time the season started, the coach felt he had humbled himself enough, and he put him back on the squad. Wait. Yeah, right. Coach knew that he needed Trey out there, so he had him back on the field, but he did want to teach him a lesson after he was acting up a little bit. I get it, but let's not act like he wasn't the man already. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you can pull these tricks with kids. Don't try that stuff with adults. We know better. Anyway, Trey makes me feel old because he's only a few days older than my daughter. So I'm really feeling the old man in that. But again, he's got a great story. He ended up playing for the Atlantic and getting drafted by the New Orleans Saints. And now he's headed to the Cincinnati Bengals. So, hey, shout out to him. Shout out to that coach down there in Apopka High School in Central Florida. Hey, that's a great story. And that's what football, in all sports are made of. Great stories, man. Because they're out there playing the game, but when you know the story behind the player, it just makes it all that much fun to watch. Now, one thing that's been kind of interesting lately is the way that sports leagues are dealing with marijuana. Now, you got marijuana being legalized in all these different states, but are the drug policies staying up to date with that? Are they updating the policies to match the current law? And so I did a little research on that, and what I found is that most of the major sports leagues have updated their policies at this point, and they are showing a real awareness of what the actual situation is, and they're not just putting blinders on and not paying attention. So what you have is leagues that are really knowing what's going on. I gotta give them a hand, because the things that I found out was a lot better than what I expected. Starting with the NFL. The NFL this year has made some changes to their drug policy as it pertains to marijuana, in that they've raised the amount of THC that's allowed in the system. So instead of only 35 nanograms, you have up to 150. Hey, give it up to them for that. And there's a reduced penalty as well, whereas you would get suspended if you tested positive, which again, it takes more for you to test positive now. And instead of suspending you, they say, hey, how about you get some help? And that help that you're getting is kind of voluntary. It's kind of up to you if you're going to go and get that help. And as well, they're only going to test you during spring training now. They're only going to test you during the couple of weeks, and then during the season, they're not going to worry about it. They're more concerned with performing enhancing drugs, as they should be. The PEDs is what hurts the league, not the THC. The THC, you got guys dealing with injuries, things of that nature. Sometimes it helps. And that's what the National Hockey League has been talking about, because players in the National Hockey League, there's a lot of Canadians. Canada has legalized marijuana for the whole country. So you have 90% of the cities that have NHL teams, the weed is legal there. So why are you penalizing players for doing something that's totally legal? And that's been the attitude they've taken, that players who use marijuana are recreational or therapeutically suffer the same consequences, but there's no penalty. And your participation in rehabilitation is optional. So NHL is paying attention to what the weed laws are and acting accordingly. Major League Baseball, they removed marijuana for drug testing in 2020. And they allow players to seek counseling as they see fit, like they would for alcohol or anything that's on that level. that's what you gotta start. People have to start understanding is that marijuana and alcohol pretty much on the same level now. Marijuana may be edging ahead because you don't get the same type of effects that you do in alcohol when you use marijuana. It's actually safer than alcohol, but those things have to be revealed in time. The NBA this year totally suspended testing for THC. They said there's a pandemic going on. We got way more other stuff to deal with. We'll focus on performance-enhancing drugs, which don't really give you an edge in basketball anyway. So they haven't really had an issue with that in the past. And now they're saying that they're not worried about marijuana either. NBA, always players league, always paying attention to the needs and the desires of their players, really blazing the path for the way the sports league should be responding to this drug. And it's just the nature of what's going on right now. I mean, you have a number of states in this country that are legalizing weed, and it makes no sense for a sports league. And I'm saying, like I told you, that NHL 90% legal in their league. NBA 73% legal in their league. The Major League Baseball 86.7% legal in their league. NFL 78.1% legal in their league. So what are we even talking about? Okay, it's legal in most of the places where they operate. So why would they penalize players for doing something that's legal? This debate isn't over, and the debate about legalization of marijuana continues. In 2012, Washington and Colorado became the first two states to legalize THC for recreational use of adults 21 and over. And since then, 9 years later, we've got a total of 14. And the number keeps growing because we just got New Jersey, Arizona, and Montana to join the fray. South Dakota, they're working on it. South Dakota approved the measure during the general election. The people voted for it with the majority, and it's being held up by certain people, judges, and other government officials in that state who don't want to bend to the will of the people. We've got to know where our fight is. If our fight is with this situation, then we need all hands on deck. South Dakota is basically telling people that the law that they want to enact is unconstitutional. But the Constitution says that the law is for the people. So there's some debate left there. And the other thing about legalization, it needs to be done on a federal level because there's a lot of confusion on the state level by consumers. Consumers can go to one state and they can legally purchase and consume marijuana in this state. In other states, the laws are a little different, so they have to adjust. You have to know the law of the land. You can't go to Washington, D.C. and expect the same marijuana laws that you get in Massachusetts. You have to know the differences. And that can lead to some issues. You may do something that's totally illegal to do in Colorado, but then you go to the state of California and things are different. So make sure, if you are a consumer, that you're paying attention to these differences in laws and you're adhering to the law. Even if you're not adhering to the law, at least know the law so that you know what rules you're breaking. Because they can use this as a way to deter other states from legalizing. Or they can use this to deter the federal government from legalizing. We're almost there. And this is not a pothead's dream, per se. This is the dream of an American citizen wanting the laws to reflect what we feel our freedom should be. We do live in America. It's supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. But more than often, It's the land of the rich and the home of the greedy. We have to stand up. We have to let them know what we want, and then we have to tell them to make it happen. That's the only way anything moves around here. And we have to make sure that we're doing it. Anyway, that's my take on that. We're going to go ahead and close this show. There's some other topics that I didn't get to this week. We'll get to them next week. If anybody has any questions, please send me your comments, send me your questions. If you just want to say up yours, that's fine too. I don't mind. But make sure you subscribe to the show. Make sure you hit that like button on all the videos, and we'll see you next time.